In America, human trafficking is a pervasive problem. From the most rural areas of our country to the most populated cities. 1 million Americans are victims of human trafficking. We have a 2/3 police response rate, although only roughly 2% of victims fully recover. However, people are fighting back. One organization in particular, humansave, is tirelessly working to fight the injustices of human trafficking every single day. Today, we're going to be talking with Francesca Douglass-Franco, an Asian American nonprofit founder of humansave, an organization that tackles human trafficking through mental health recovery, training, and awareness for schools and communities across the country. To start off, Francesca, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to found humansave?
I was born in the Philippines, but I didn't move to the States until I was 5 with my mom. My mom was a single mom. I grew up in Long Beach, California. I lived there from the time I was 5 until 2 years ago, so until I was 31. Went to school there from first grade through university. I went to Cal State Long Beach. My dad passed away when I was 7. So, like I said, my mom raised me as a single mom, and I think that had a huge influence on my upbringing, and we were very, very close. And she just actually passed away a couple of years ago. She was a marriage and family therapist, and she helped me start humansave. um, my stepdad they my stepdad worked in law enforcement. Before that, he was military, so he was a colonel in the Marine Corps. And so before I got into the nonprofit world and the mental health space, my aspirations were actually more to do with military intelligence or law enforcement intelligence. Um, I worked there briefly in that field, and that's how I kind of came across human trafficking and what it meant to the United States, like how it was happening in the United States rather than in other countries, like most of us, I think, at first believed. And yeah, with my mom's background in mental health, and I worked with her as well. I did her billing, I was her interpreter, and I also worked at a couple other mental health nonprofits just by coincidence, I think. So after having the, I guess, experience in learning more about human trafficking and then melding that with what mental health accomplishes, or what therapy hopes to accomplish in terms of catalyzing healing, right? Like from the inside, humansave was born. I don't know, that was a bit roundabout. It's kind of hard to condense just because it's one of those things where people ask me, how did you get into this field? And it just feels like everything that ever happened in my life led to this space. Hopefully you can cut pieces of this just in case it doesn't make any sense. But I will also say that growing up in some of the not so privileged areas and going to school in the rougher schools really helped me connect with this population more, because I was a part of, at-risk youth, I would say. And that's part of where my passion comes from, to educate prevention and awareness in the school system, and to kind of empower the youth as well. Which is why I took this interview, because it was like, I love that. I love that you're working to catalyze change from this level, from high school and college, and younger generations. We need that.
Could you tell us a little bit about the programs and services that humansave offers communities, schools, and individuals?
Yeah, so built mostly on our therapy piece. So we provide life-saving therapy to survivors of trafficking. Our youngest client has been 2 years old. Our oldest client has been in their 80s. And the point isn't just to address the symptoms, right, and put a Band-Aid on them. It's really to go deeper to the core of the issue, and at the heart of it all, help them connect more with themselves and with their loved ones. So when it's a child, then a lot of the therapy and a lot of the psychoeducation is helping the parent support their kid, right? Because the trauma is like, it's the thing that happened, and then it's also how that thing that happened affects everything else going forward. And so, as the child develops and grows older and all of that, there's still things that they're going to need help with. So the best way for us to do it is to support the whole family, to help them support the survivor in turn. So it's more like there's a more of a longevity in helping them heal. As for the school-based program, so I do a lot of trainings for Long Beach Unified School District, specific classes that tend to ask for this awareness and prevention. And I love those because the kids are actually telling me how they're being solicited on like Instagram, on Discord, on everything. And I get to use that information and share it with everybody else continuously. So it's like always real-time information on how to keep kids safe. Like for instance, I think normally you would think that girls are getting hit up more often by potential predators and exploiters, but the last time that I worked with a class, they were telling me, the girls and the boys were telling me that the guys were getting hit up more often, invited out for, I'll buy you lunch, let's go meet and play basketball, but it's a complete random grown man, like from a social media outlet. So I like those trainings are great because I think that the kids end up sharing the information with each other. And while the point is to tell them what signs to look for human trafficking, it's also to kind of inspire and empower them to look out for each other, right? Build your empathy, watch out for the classmates that you have that look like they don't have any friends. Those are the ones that really have a target on their back, that kind of thing. So they can care more and protect each other because they see each other. You guys see each other more than any adult sees you. Another thing that we do is we train other clinicians in this field, because at first, 7 years ago, I thought, okay, maybe humansave, because this issue is so big, maybe humansave will have an office in in every single one of the 13 hotspots in the United States. And then it was quickly like, wow, this is so huge, even just in LA County, it's really hard to keep up. So the way that we can serve more individuals, I found, is doing trainings for people who are already working with this population and giving them the tools and the skill set to better be able to serve them, I think. Yeah, and then train the community, of course. We're always telling businesses and whoever is interested. I mean, of course, there's certain industries that seem like they're more related, like hospitality or restaurants, or anywhere that you think that there might be a high incidence of human trafficking. But in reality, relating to people on a human level is actually what helps them to care about even finding a victim. You can give anybody a list of things to look for, but if they can't relate it back to themselves and their families and how to protect their own kids, which makes it relevant to everyone, right? Then it's just a list that gets, forgotten as soon as that training is over. So,
Yeah.
Actually, I think we have one more. Sorry, one more training. We do a lot of workshops for other survivors as well, even the ones that we aren't serving, and they have to do with kind of mental health, mental wellness related things, like life skills, like boundary setting skills, effective decision making, things that a lot of people will take for granted if we actually had that modeled for us. Journaling, those kinds of things to help with coping mechanisms.
Were there any particular challenges or struggles that you faced, especially in the beginning of your journey?
I think anybody who is a nonprofit leader or who founded their own nonprofit will definitely attest to the fact that that is an ongoing battle, especially in the very beginning. I think any entrepreneur actually can relate to this, is that when you have this idea in your head and it doesn't yet exist outside of your head, it's really hard I mean, that's one of the hardest parts, right? It's like almost like giving birth to this idea. And so, in those moments before we had any clients, we had this idea of what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and not being able to get clients yet because we're new. And mental health field, it's like a lot of these organizations have been around for 20 plus years or more. I would definitely say there were moments where I was like, are we even a mental health nonprofit if we aren't doing therapy? And it didn't last more than a couple of months, but at the same time, in those couple of months, it's like, do we exist? if I'm not thinking about it and we only have like one other person thinking about it, if they're not thinking about it, then does it even exist? So, yes. And then, of course, the ongoing challenges with funding. Victim services has been cut across the board throughout the country. Human trafficking related services have been cut as well. And so, yeah, I mean, for us and for a lot of our partner organizations right now is a very difficult time.
How were you able to spread the word and reach victims who needed help or reach communities who needed training and prevention?
And I think I was thinking about it the wrong way in the beginning, trying to approach organizations at the top level, like C-suite level, to tell them about our services. And they're like, yeah, of course, that's great. And we'd have all these meetings in person back then. But the reality was, it was when I started meeting like boots on the ground, social workers, the actual clinicians, and letting them know what we do, that's when we started seeing movement and networking, right? So I attended a lot of meetings or networking events, like the LA Regional Human Trafficking Task Force was probably the one that changed the game for us, because when we joined that, and they were kind of far, so I lived in Long Beach and they were like North Hollywood, which is an hour-ish drive if there's traffic. But we met somebody with Homeland Security there, and she was a founder of the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force. So almost immediately it was like, oh, there's a task force in my own city, which I didn't know about, because like you said, you don't even know what you're looking for. You don't know how to find what you don't know you're looking for. And so that was kind of how we got the word out. And then in those meetings, everybody kind of, any of the new members will talk about what they do, what services they offer, and that is kind of it. So it's all about finding the networking events and groups and spaces that fits the people that you're trying to serve.
Could you tell us a little bit about HumanSave's community prevention philosophy towards human trafficking prevention and awareness?
Exactly that. That is exactly it. When somebody is abused and then they're in pain with their trauma, what has actually happened to them, the worst part of it that has happened to them, is that it's isolated them and makes them feel alone and makes them feel like nobody cares and nobody loves them. And so with that idea, healing occurs when someone feels loved, and when they love themselves, and when the people who they love, they feel like they love them back, right? And so that's within the family system and then within the greater community. So exactly that. The thing that I talk about for prevention the most is giving your kids love and attention and unconditional acceptance. It's like, it doesn't matter what your kid got for grades in school. It doesn't matter what any of those things, like, let them feel like there's nothing that they can do that will ever make you love them less. That is the strongest armor, because when somebody comes in and offers all of these things, and most especially that emotional connection, because that is the thing that binds the exploiter to the victim. It's the attention and the love. And so when you give that to your child freely, there's no one else. We're hardwired when we're kids to seek our parents' approval and their love. And so when you give that to them, there's no one else who could come in later on and be like, oh, but I'll give you this. It's like, why? I don't want that. I already have it. There's no lack in that particular thing. And so exactly what you're saying, that is the most powerful thing that we can do for the children in our lives, is to really genuinely love them, be interested in them, unconditionally accept them. And then if we can, and we have the capacity to take care of their friends too, pour into your own community, because one kid in danger puts all the kids in danger, right? So
How does HumanSave measure impact and success, and in what forms have you seen that so far?
that is another very excellent question. I'll try to distill it to the core of it. So first of all, we are lucky because we provide long care services, right? Long-term services. It's not just 30 sessions and then you're done. It's not just whatever. It's however long our clients need us. It's kind of like based on a private practice model, but we're providing the service for this particular population. And so some of our clients we've been with for 6 years now, and it's impossible not to see the progress when it's been 6 whole years, right? From unhoused to having stable housing, a stable job, having custody of your kids back, going through college, graduating, like all of these things that are just like, were not part of their trajectory the moment that they walked in, or they didn't see that it was part of their trajectory. But it obviously was, because they bought in and they showed up for the work, for therapy. Therapy is really hard. And I think anyone who's been through it understands how difficult it is to face your demons like that. And so they really fought for these lives that they have. But we get to see it because, unlike, let's say, law enforcement that picks up and rescues somebody out of a situation, they probably don't really see that person ever again. So they don't know. Or they see them again because they went to go pick them up again, right? Where was I going with this? I'm sorry. I think I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
How do you see the progress? And then one of the things that we've also noticed, and this was something that my mom had pointed out before it had even happened. She was our clinical director, so she built our clinical program and the core of all of the teachings and the how we do everything that we do. She said that you'll know that it's working when you start to see your clients giving back. So when they're volunteering, and we've absolutely started to see that with certain people. We're volunteering for foster care or for whatever, animal shelter, like whatever speaks to their heart. But that just means that they have enough that they want to help other people. And, people say hurt people, but healed people heal people too, right? And this is hard to quantify in terms of funding, in terms of statistics, in terms of quantitative data to prove that, okay, this is working without it being over such a long period of time. But a lot of times in prevention work, like if you're doing these trainings, you don't actually know if it ever worked, because if it didn't work, it's very visible, right? Something happened, somebody got hurt, you can see it. When somebody manages to escape those situations or not even be a target, like all of a sudden they're not vulnerable anymore because now something got activated within their parents putting in more work to be more connected to them, and all of a sudden the door to being a target closes. You'll never know, right? And the thing is, that effect still spans generations, but we don't know. So I guess over the long term, you'll start to see communities thriving and caring for each other more. The fastest or the easiest symptom to see will be that people have more capacity to care for another human being and will choose protecting somebody over profit, over anything else, but over profit especially.
Do you have any advice for younger Asian Americans who are also passionate about this issue but may be a little hesitant in pursuing a career in the nonprofit sector?
Please come through, because there aren't a lot of people that I've met in this space yet. And I hadn't really thought about that until very recently. But also, I think the message would even be more for the parents. I think that I never envisioned leading a nonprofit, starting a nonprofit. It was never like even something that I remotely thought about until that perfect storm of things happened. Like, okay, here's a situation, an issue that isn't being addressed. What can I do? What skill set do I have? And so that question, it's a privilege to be able to ask ourselves that, because we don't feel like we're going to disappoint our parents, right? My mom was very supportive, looked like a tiger mom, but she was very much like the opposite of that. It was very much like, whatever you want to study, whatever you like, whatever your passions are, follow them. And when people have that, when children have that faith and belief in themselves, when they know that their parents have their back, they will do amazing things. And honestly, I think that's the most important thing that a parent could give. So yes, it's not the clear-cut path that I think a lot of immigrant parents would like for their children, but to consider that maybe the clear-cut path isn't the way that your child will shine and be able to experience fulfillment and joy and be able to impact the world in the way that they uniquely can, right? So on the flip side of that, telling kids, it's really hard when the parents don't have the buy-in. But I mean, the reality is that a lot of us don't have that buy-in. And so telling the kids, follow your fulfillment and you'll thrive. Whatever it is that lights your soul on fire, that's where you belong. And that's where you will succeed. And trying really hard to fulfill somebody else's version of success is going to make you really unhappy. And then you're going to wake up when you're 30 and you're finally like, okay, well, I'm an adult now and I can do whatever it is I want. You're going to find that you wasted some really, really good years. I mean, it's not a waste because you can always learn from it, but you spent a lot of years feeling not enough when you were always enough. Does that make sense?
How do you find balance and maintain your own mental health while also pursuing advocacy and leading humansave?
I have a family, so I have two daughters and a very supportive and loving husband. And I think that pouring into them is two things. It's one, walking the talk, right? That's like the whole thing about wellness and healing and this field, mental wellness and mental health. Um, so when I'm feeling burnt out, there is somebody, my husband will literally be like, you are working too much, stop it. Um, Otherwise, I, like you said, there's always something to do, right? There's always more, there's always whatever. So pausing, making sure that I schedule in joy just as often as I schedule in a meeting, right? Like a day of, I'm not going to do anything until X time, and I'm just going to let that be. If there's an email and it's pressing, unless somebody calls me and they're like, it's an emergency, not going to answer it. I think having those very strong boundaries helps us become more impactful. Otherwise, like you said, we burn out, and then who are we really helping? We're not even helping ourselves at that point. And that's one thing that we also implement with our therapists, because anybody in the helping field, a lot of people who want to help other people at the expense of their own health and mental health. So just practicing radical boundary setting, I guess, is the best answer to that.